In the early years of the 20th century, Australia was struggling with the after effects of the Great Depression. The country's farmers were facing financial ruin, and the agricultural industry was on the brink of collapse. At over 6 feet tall and with powerful legs capable of running at speeds of up to 30 miles per hour, the emu was not an animal that could be easily ignored, though the emu had always existed alongside Australia's farmers. It wasn't until 1932 that these birds became a serious threat. What started as an agricultural nuisance would soon become one of the most bizarre and improbable military campaigns in history, a war between man and bird. A war that would ultimately see the birds emerge victorious. Australia, with its vast, often unforgiving landscapes, had already become a place where the unexpected could occur. Australian outback was wild, unpredictable, teeming with creatures that could often challenge even the most resilient settlers. One of these creatures was the emu, a large flightless bird native to Australia. It was 1932 when the Australian government, under pressure from desperate farmers, decided to take action. The country's wheat crop, which had already been struggling due to the economic downturn and a series of natural disasters, was being devastated by thousands of emus. These birds, searching for food and shelter in the vast, dry fields of Western Australia, were trampling crops, devouring grain, and causing widespread destruction. The damage to the wheat fields was so severe that farmers were losing their livelihoods at an alarming rate. Desperate for a solution, the Australian government decided that enough was enough and that the solution would come in the form of military intervention. The decision to send soldiers to confront the emus was made with military precision. In November 1932, the government authorized the deployment of troops to the wheat-producing regions of Western Australia, where the emu population had grown out of control. Initially, the emus were scattered across the fields. But as the soldiers began their assault, the birds quickly showed that they were no easy target. The machine guns, which were meant to mow down the birds in large groups, failed to do significant damage. The emus were swift and elusive, and they scattered in all directions at the slightest sign of danger, rendering the soldiers' guns largely ineffective. It was quickly apparent that the soldiers were not fighting an organized army, but a wild, unpredictable force of nature. Equipped with machine guns and military equipment, the soldiers, led by Major G.P.W. Meredith, were tasked with eradicating the emu threat once and for all. For every emu they managed to hit, 2 more seemed to appear. The terrain, which had been chosen for its openness, also turned out to be a disadvantage for the soldiers, as the birds used the undulating land to their advantage, darting into gullies and avoiding the heavy artillery. The soldiers, who had expected a relatively straightforward military operation, found themselves bogged down in a battle they hadn't prepared for. It was a mission that seemed simple enough on paper: use modern military technology to defeat a flightless bird. However, the emu proved to be a far more formidable adversary than anyone had anticipated. The soldiers set up camp near the town of Campion, where they hoped to engage the emus in large numbers. In the early days of the campaign, the soldiers were able to kill a few emus, but they found themselves in a constant battle against the birds' speed and agility. As the days wore on, the emus seemed to grow bolder, and the military's efforts to curb their population were met with increasing frustration. The soldiers, equipped with state-of-the-art weaponry, had never faced an opponent quite like the emu. Despite their initial success, the soldiers were soon running into a series of technical difficulties. The machine guns, while powerful, were poorly suited for such an unusual target. They jammed frequently, and the ammunition ran out quickly, further hampering the military's ability to deal with the birds. On top of that, the emu's ability to scatter and regroup in larger numbers made it nearly impossible for the soldiers to gain control over the situation. When a group of emus would be taken down in one area, another group would appear on the horizon, seemingly undeterred. What was supposed to be a quick and efficient military campaign had turned into a farce. Farmers who had initially supported the idea of using military force to deal with the emus grew frustrated as the soldiers failed to produce results. Many of the soldiers themselves began to question the effectiveness of the operation, and reports from the field reflected growing concern over the futility of their efforts. The sheer number of emus, which had swollen to the tens of thousands, made it impossible for the soldiers to eliminate the threat. The emus were no longer just a nuisance. They had become an overwhelming force in their own right. The military's failure to make significant progress against the emus drew mockery from the press and the public. At the end of the first week of fighting, the soldiers had only managed to kill around 1,000 emus, far fewer than they had hoped. The birds, meanwhile, had learned to adapt to the situation. They were able to avoid the machine gun fire by moving in small, fast-moving groups, making it almost impossible for the soldiers to track and eliminate them. It became clear that this was not a battle of technology and firepower. It was a battle of endurance, and the emus were winning. By December 1932, the military had decided to call off the operation. The initial optimism had turned into frustration, and the soldiers, disillusioned by their lack of progress, returned to their posts. The emus, meanwhile, continued to thrive in the fields, causing irreparable damage to crops. It has become a humorous, albeit somewhat tragic, reminder that nature cannot always be tamed, no matter how much technology or military might is thrown at it. The battle between man and bird was not just a clash of firepower and feathers, it was a lesson in humility, and a strange story of nature's triumph over the technological advancements of the modern world. The military's failure to defeat the emus had a profound impact on the farmers, who were left to deal with the ongoing destruction to their livelihoods. The Australian government, embarrassed by the failure of the operation, shifted its focus to alternative methods of managing the emu population, such as building fences to keep the birds away from farmland. Despite the military's retreat, the Emu War remains an enduring symbol of the unpredictability of nature and the limits of human technology. The emus, though they were no match for the firepower of modern warfare, had proven that their survival instincts and speed made them an unrelenting force in the wild. The Great Emu War stands as a reminder of the sometimes absurd nature of conflict, where the unexpected can disrupt even the most calculated military operations. To this day, the Emu War is remembered in Australia as one of the most bizarre chapters in the country's history. Though the Emu War may seem like a quirky and humorous chapter in history, it holds a deeper significance. It serves as a reminder that, despite humanity's technological advancements, we're often powerless in the face of nature's unpredictable forces. The emus, in their own way, demonstrated resilience and adaptability in the face of overwhelming odds. The war they waged against the soldiers of Australia is a testament to their persistence. Today, the Emu War remains a fascinating and often amusing part of Australian folklore, and it continues to remind us that sometimes the most unlikely of adversaries can emerge victorious.